Hey, what's up? My name's Asian Psycho, aka Sniper98. So, Fate Grand Order English has been out for a little over 2 months, maybe even 2.5, depending on when I post this video, if I'm not already grinding my ass off on the game in the meantime. And by now, most players in the game have realized that in order to progress in the game, you need to level up your servants, to the point where you aren't getting trashed by enemies you see in the daily events in Kalide. And subsequently, you also realize that you can increase your servants' max levels through a process called Ascension that makes them stronger, gives them additional skills, and most importantly, gives them updated graphics. Though in KabookiZ case, it's maybe not so much. And then you realize that once you get to the point where you'll want to ascend your servants because they're max levels at Ascension stage, you need more Ascension materials. Now, if you're not already intimately familiar with the game, meaning not the people who've already played or are currently playing the Japanese version of the game, or if you're just too damn lazy to go Google what you need and find this very convenient wiki that tells you everything you need to know, you might not know where to find said Ascension items to, well, you know, ascend your servants. The game will tell you what you need if you just go to the Ascension tab at any point for any servant, but the question is, where to get them, and more importantly, how often you'll get them. Because let's face it, FGO is one giant RNG fest. Everything from loot drop rates to certain skills to even how much damage your servants do in a given attack is calculated on chance, so naturally you'll want to know what your odds are. And this is especially true for the English version of the game since we don't obviously have the same level of content that Japan does. And me being your friendly neighborhood whale, since I've grinded this game to a considerable degree, in case the level 121 didn't mean much to you, I decided to make this video to impart what useless wisdom I've accrued over the weeks onto players who are frustrated with their grinding and want to look for a comprehensive guide for all the Ascension items in the game that are currently relevant. So, hopefully you make some use out of this. A couple disclaimers before we begin though. First, you should know that the style of this video is greatly inspired, copied even, from another YouTuber by the name of Gregor. He does Rainbow Six Siege videos and is pretty successful if I do say so myself, and his how to play every operator in the game video is one I'm directly pulling influence from. So, in case you notice similarities, that's why. Please don't scream fraud just because I have no sense of humor and need to copy other people's to make it look like I have one. It also helps that both he and I share the similarity of enjoying some quality memes, so yeah, check him out I guess. Second, this video is published before the Oceanus, or is it Okeanos, singularity is released. Therefore, there are going to be some Ascension items that this video just won't cover simply because they're not readily available to English players outside of things like servant interludes or events like the recent Nero-Fest or Moonfest. And depending on how successful this video is and how much people don't hate me for being a dirty fucking whale, I may make a follow-up video, or videos, as the game gets updated with new maps, new Ascension items, etc. But for now, this video will only cover items that can be farmed to any extent at the time it was posted, so if you're watching this, say, like a year from now, obviously the info on this video will be outdated. So like, yeah, don't yell at me for something that's out of my control, thanks. So now that we've gotten those disclaimers out of the way, let's get started, shall we? Let's begin with hero proofs. All Ascension items are tied to a certain enemy and come in either silver or gold boxes that the enemies drop when you kill them, and this applies to daily events and story nodes. Special events like Nero-Fest and Moonfest obviously work a little differently, so don't worry about those for now. Ascension items are also categorized into one of two tiers, silver and gold, as in the silver and gold boxes that they come in when they get dropped from the enemies you kill, like we just discussed earlier, and the first 3 Ascension items we'll be discussing here are considered silver tier. In the case of heroes proofs, you can get them from either soldiers or zombies. Zombies who, for some reason, look like pirates, even though Okeanos hasn't even been released yet. And for the story nodes, the best places you can farm them at are here and here in Orleans, and here, and here in Septim. According to the spreadsheet I showed earlier in this video, Florence and Mediolanum have the best drop rates at barely under 30%, but Marseille in Orleans has the best AP efficiency if you want to farm these in story nodes, since it has a marginally smaller drop chance at like barely 29.2% or something like that, and costs less AP to farm. You can also farm these on the Wednesday dailies, Thursday dailies for you folks in EU, on the 10 AP and 20 AP monster hunts. since the first waves of those 2 dailies are soldiers and zombies, but since they're the only ones that show up that you can fight, farming the story nodes might actually be better if you're gunning for hero proofs specifically. But since you're probably farming for either Dragon Fangs or Seeds on those particular dailies, getting hero proofs out of them in the process is pretty nice too. On to Evil Bones. Those spooky skeletons drop these things, and if you've cleared Fuyuki, which you probably should have by this point, you'll know that Fuyuki is absolutely infested with them. No, not these skeletons, these skeletons. The best node where you can farm bones in Fuyuki is here, because even though you do need to commit more AP to it, the drop rate is tweaked higher to compensate, specifically to 64% for the XG node. You can also farm them here in Germania and Septum too, since the enemies you fight before the Big Bad Chimera are all skeletons as well, and they've also got a very good drop rate at a respectable 54%. Currently, bones can only be farmed here on story nodes, since you don't really fight any skeleton enemies in any of the dailies that are available on NA at the moment. So if you've been relying solely on dailies to get you all the essential materials you need, just know that once you start working on sending servants who take evil bones as essential materials, you'll have to start grinding out some of the story nodes for them. Next up, Dragon Fangs. Dragons! 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 Regin, where you at? No, not you, you sorry motherfucker. So you get the point. Dragon enemies drop these. And remember the other type of skeletons that I mentioned before when I was talking about evil bones? Yeah, those guys drop fangs too. Since, you know, they're called dragon tooth warriors. Naturally, Orleans is the best place to farm for dragon fangs, if you're trying to farm them from story nodes, that is. And the best places to get them are here and here. There are other nodes that do offer dragon-type enemies that can drop dragon fangs, but for the most part, these 2 places are the best places to get them. But by far, the best place to farm them is the 10 AP Monster Hunt Daily on Thursday. Friday for you EU folks, where you fight the Red Dragon at the end. But I've also personally taken a liking to farming the 10 AP Monster Hunt Daily on the previous day too, on Wednesday that is, where you can also get hero proofs, because the Dragon Tooth guy at the end also gives you guaranteed Fang drops if he drops you a silver box. That, and since I typically spend all my time farming for hearts, talons, and scales on the Thursday dailies, the Wednesday one is a good alternative for me to farm Dragon Fangs, since I know I'll be grinding a 30 AP Thursday daily harder than a belly dancer down at your local strip club. Now on to the gold tier Ascension items, starting with Void's Dust, or Void's Refuse, or fucking Netflix's translation, god damn it. You get these things from Shadow Servants. Any of them in the story nodes have chances of dropping them, but if you're after these things specifically, don't farm the story nodes because the chances are not that great. Instead, what you want to do is you want to farm the Servant Fight Dailies, as I like to call them, since the first 2 waves of those fights are nothing but Shadow Servants who rarely drop gold boxes for you, which are, most of the time, Void's Dust. And if you're like me, you'll get to the point where you have so many of these fucking things stacked up that you'll want to strangle those bastards. They drop you another gold box that isn't a monument. Good echo craziness aside, the 30 AP fights naturally have the highest chance of dropping Void's Dust at around 57-ish%. But you can also get them reliably from the 20 AP dailies too, if AP usage is more of a concern. And the drop rate there is around 40% too. However, I still do recommend that you farm them from the 30 AP dailies anyway, because you never know if you'll get lucky with a gold box drop that ends up turning it into a monument, like a random monument, and as slim as the chance is, eventually you'll get one that actually does turn out to be a monument. And who knows, it might be one you need to ascend a servant, and by getting that, it saves you time and AP. Done with that, now let's talk about walnuts. 3 types of enemies so far have the chance to drop these. Werewolves, that ugly ogre motherfucker, who's the boss of the 20 AP Wednesday Monster Hunt Daily, and the bronze tier Amazons. You can farm them from 3 story nodes, here, here, and here. But the one in Jula is more or less negligible, since the drop rate there is basically the same as getting a 4-star servant from the gacha. By far, the one in Bordeaux is the most AP efficient, and has just over a 10% drop rate, which isn't too bad for a story node drop. Your best bet is to farm them from the 20 AP daily that I mentioned earlier, since it has an increased drop rate of around 14 to 15%, and the boss there, the ogre motherfucker that I mentioned, also drops it as a guaranteed gold drop reward, conveniently enough. Simple enough, let's move on to the Ghost Lantern. The Assassin Ghosts drop these, hence Ghost Lanterns. Only one story node drops these though, Mount Edna in Septum. And surprisingly enough, you actually have a much better chance of getting these from the story node than you can from the Thursday Monster Hunt dailies where the ghosts show up with the golems, dragons, and snakecasters. You have a 10.6% chance of grabbing a lantern from Mount Edna compared to the abysmal 2.7% on the 30 AP one, or the even worse 1.8% on the 20 AP one. So, you get the idea. You need lanterns? Mount Edna's got you covered. Even simpler, I like it. Now, Octuplet Crystals. Octuplet Crystals are similar to Ghost Lanterns in that they also have better drop rates in the story nodes that they show up in compared to the Thursday Monster Hunt dailies. You can get them from two places to accept them, here and here. Gaul has a 7% drop rate, while the Union Capital only has a 3.3% drop rate, so yeah, you know which one you're going to be farming. For some reason, just speaking off personal experience, out of all three of the rare Ascension items that the monsters in the Thursday Monster Hunt dailies can drop, I seem to be getting the crystals the most often. It's not unheard of for me to pick up anywhere from 5 to even over a dozen crystals in one day's worth of grinding, but again, keep in mind that this is really only feasible to whales like me who have copious amounts of time and quartz to constantly grind to the extent that I do, so just know that while I can't possibly speak for everyone, I do want to bring this up because in case you realize that your crystal stash is somehow a lot bigger than your other item stashes the next time you check your materials list in my room, well, that's why. And no, not that crystal stash. Now, onto snake eyes, or jewels, whichever you prefer. Snake eyes are by far one of the hardest Ascension materials to get currently in Fate Grand Order English because the only enemy type that drops them only appears right now in the Thursday Monster Hunt dailies, the Snakecasters. To make it even worse, their drop rates are downright pathetic. The 20 AP hunt has a pitiful 1.2% drop rate, and the 30 AP one isn't much better at all at only 1.5%. So just keep in mind that whenever you're trying to grind for Snake Eyes, you're basically more or less trying to roll for Kentucky since his banner's still up at the moment. Matter of fact, you straight up might just be better off trying to roll for him or any other 5-star servant that you want if you want Snake Eyes. And when you do happen to be lucky enough to get a Snake Eye, just remember, that Snake Eye you just pulled could have been a 5-star servant. Since Okeanos is right around the corner though, I do feel that this needs to be said just for the sake of people who are just about to rip out their eyeballs over the horrendous drop rates for these Snake Eyes. There is one node that you can farm Snake Eyes from in Okeanos, so if you do need a lot of Snake Eyes, like I do for my own Atalanta and French Saber, then you just need to wait a little while longer until we get Okeanos, and then we'll be able to farm for Snake Eyes to our heart's content. One more thing about Snake Eyes before I forget. If you happen to have Orion, or Artemis, whichever you want to call her, when Okeanos releases, make sure to have her at least first Ascension and at second bond level, because then you'll be able to do her interlude once you complete the Okeanos Singularity, and that last stage of that interlude pits you against the Snakecasters, or the Lamia as the game calls them, and you're guaranteed Snake Eye drops from this fight. How many you'll get, I'm not sure, since the wiki only says that the Snake Eye drops themselves are guaranteed, but it doesn't say exactly how many you'll get. But nonetheless, this is still a very nice bonus for those of us who do have Orion. And generally, as a rule of thumb, keep an eye out for other interludes of other servants as well. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that interludes can have the chance to drop you some rare Ascension items if you're lucky, and some even give you guaranteed items on top of it, just like Orion's interlude that I just talked about. So it's always worth doing a little bit of research to see which servants' interludes are like this and can give you the opportunity to get some items that you're looking for. And now, Phoenix Feathers. Only one type of enemy in the game right now drops them, the Amazons. And to make matters worse, it's not all of them. The bronze tier Amazons, like I mentioned before, only drop the seeds as their gold reward drop, and only the silver tier and gold tier Amazons that you fight in the second wave of the 30 AP Wednesday Monster Hunt Daily and the boss wave have the potential to drop you Phoenix Feathers, and even then, your overall drop rate for these is only going to be like 11.2%. Personally, when I've grinded for feathers, I've found that for whatever reason, the second half of the day while this daily is active is when it drops the most feathers for me. I've grinded out over 10 feathers or so in the final 4 or 5 hours of daily alone one time, whereas in a previous day, it took me like 4 hours just to see my first feather right after daily went active. It's different for different people. Other people on my friends list have said that they get the most feathers most often right after the daily goes live, which is obviously the opposite of me. So even though it's supposed to be just pure RNG at the end of the day, I do recommend that you try to grind this daily at different times or different intervals during the day and see which times seem to yield you the most amount of feathers, because otherwise you'll just find yourself getting gold gems like this over and 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 over, and then you get the idea. Now onto the big three, as I like to call them, starting with the Claw of Chaos, or just Talons. You have exactly two places to farm these, the story node in Germania and Septum, or during the 20 AP Thursday Monster Hunt Daily. Only the Chimera enemy type drops these, so if you're fighting one at any given moment in time, just know that has the potential to drop you a Talon, as shit as the drop chance itself is. The 20 AP Monster Hunt has only a marginally better drop rate at 5.4%, but considering that the one in Septum has an even worse 3.2% drop rate, you can think of it as having your odds doubled when you grind out 20 AP daily compared to the Germania free quest. Other than that, that's it. Let's move on to hearts. This is going to be pretty simple. Only one guy in the whole damn game at the moment has the potential to give you hearts, and it's that demon guy. And guess what? 3.1% drop rate. Good luck. And finally, scales. Just like hearts, only one enemy can give you scales, and that's Fafnir, or that dragon boss who's so frickin' huge you can't even see his head on the screen. And hey look, a 2.7% drop rate chance. Do you have EX ranked luck? Time to find out. Lastly, but certainly not least, let's talk about monuments. The only times you can get monuments are during servant fights, so unfortunately you can't farm any of the story nodes for these. However, keep in mind that you may receive monuments as a story arc completion reward for doing or completing certain missions in a Singularity arc, so do keep an eye out for these when you go through Okeanos or any other future Singularity campaign. As far as the dailies go, there are two ways to get monuments, either through a gold drop box that a shadow servant drops, as demonstrated earlier in this video, or from the boss servant that you fight at the end. By far your best chances of getting monuments are the 30 AP dailies. While it's not unheard of to randomly pick up a monument from a 10 AP daily, hell, even a 10 AP daily if you're that lucky, it's just much more consistent with the 30 APs because the final servant that you fight at the end can drop you a guaranteed monument of its class if it drops you a gold box. The fact that the 20 AP dailies only have like a 3% or less overall chance to give you a monument doesn't really help too much either. But it's also not unheard of to pick up multiple monuments in a single run should your luck hold strong enough. Since the servant classes are divided into the groups, the sabers, archers, and lancers as the knight group, and the riders, assassins, casters, and berserkers as the cavalry group, you'll want to farm those dailies whenever you feel like you need the pieces or the monuments for whichever particular servant you want to ascend. The knights are on Mondays and Fridays here in the US, and cavalries are on Tuesdays and Saturdays. One thing I'd like to add is that just by nature, the monuments from the cavalry group are just harder to get more consistently than the knight group because the cavalries have more classes that they need to allot more resources to. It also doesn't help that berserker monuments have by far the lowest chance at dropping at 8.2%. And while this isn't that much worse compared to, say, the casters, who have a 8.4% rate of dropping you a monument, it feels just that much worse, especially when Kintoki refuses to drop you any monuments to the point where you start calling him Kintoki out of spite. And that's it for all the Ascension items that are currently available in the game. I hope you've enjoyed this comprehensive list, and by all means, if there's stuff that you'd like to add that you feel will contribute to the overall helpfulness of this video, the comment section below is ready and waiting. So, with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. I'm not going to do the whole stereotypical YouTuber outro thing where I ask you to like and share this video to support me, because you just watching this video to the end is the only support that I'd ever ask for. No, that wasn't meant to be some kind of dumb reverse psychology thing, seriously. Other than that, I hope you learned something from this video, and even if you didn't, at least I hope you were entertained. Until next time, then, see you guys later.